live now again. I must have
Right.
accidentally stopped it. I'm a fucking idiot, is basically.
I saw
I
because you
think
were
I
like,
meant to
"I'll send
stop.
you the link," and then it just ended after you said that. So you must have clicked stop.
Right, I meant to stop screen sharing, is what I was trying to do. I wonder if there's anyone watching now.
Hang on, if I
Probably
go to
not.
your channel, it's not. It's not. Oh no, no. It says welcome to our live show. Welcome to our live show. So it's a new video that is started rather than carry
This will
on.
be a new video, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I didn't make the same mistake as last time. We'll call this the after show,
Sort of.
the after party. All right, yeah, I tried to stop screen sharing and I just stopped streaming, which
I sent
is
you
done.
an image, by the way, because I did once formalize this argument of JimBob's. If you wanted to
Oh
see
yeah,
what he's saying,
you're quite quiet
that's
at my end. I don't know if that's
let
because
me.
my
It could be my mic. I'll change input MacBook Pro microphone. Is that any better? Maybe.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
really good now.
Okay.
All right, so you're saying if P1, if something is a physical effect, then it's not truth apt proposition. If naturalism is true, then reality is exhausted by physical effects. Therefore, if naturalism is true, there are no truth apt propositions, but there are truth apt propositions, therefore naturalism is false. Okay, I see. So it's a kind of
That's the best I could
hypothetical.
make of
Yeah,
listening to what he was saying, but
I see. Um, I mean, so I think that there are like, um, I think that there are like arguments that are like that. So, right, there's this idea of causal closure, of course, which is basically saying that, like, I think, as my understanding is that, like, in when it was like Newtonian physics, it was still sort of possible to think that there might be like outside influences, like introducing new impetus or force or something, just sort of seemingly spontaneously, like, or your mind might interact with the physical world like that. But then over the development of physics, it became less and less realistic that could be plausible. So like some stuff about conservation of energy and things like that, which mean that it's not plausible to think that there are just sort of outside new droplets of energy just appearing from seemingly nowhere into the causal order. It's like all closed and stuff. And that those types of arguments, you then start thinking, well, hold on, if this thing's effect, if this thing has a physical effect, like if my mind is moving my hand around, and that is obviously the effect is physical. Causal closure just means it can't be, that the input is not physical. So if you think causal closure is true and you think that my hand moving around is an effect that my mind has, then there you go. My mind must be physical. I mean, I think it's a much better argument than what he was saying. And I don't know why, if he wants to like avail himself of physicalist arguments, and there you go, say stuff like that.
I think though it's in the kind of word salady part, like the kind of jumble of one thing you missed actually. Well, I'm sure, like, I don't think you missed it, but didn't pick up on amongst other things you were picking up on was when he said like reality is a metaphysical claim, and it's like it's just one of these many sentences he produces that are just like grammatically weird, like they just don't
Yeah.
sound right, and you feel like you're having a stroke or something listening to him trying to make sense of what he's saying.
Mm.
And but I think that part of that lack of clarity is how some of what he's saying works, right? Because he sets up these kind of conditionals where he's like, if naturalism is true, then and then he like says a bunch of like garbled nonsense that's like a tree would be true or something, right? Like
Mm.
a tree would have to be true or false. And you're like, what the fuck? Like what? And where that's coming from is just grammar and like conventional use of grammar and what kind of use of words is grammatical, rather than
Mm-hmm.
it having there being anything kind of profound that you can read off that. And I think it's interesting because I think that there are more sophisticated versions of this that go on in more sophisticated metaphysics, right? Where people sort of um, take the grammatical form of certain terms and kind of apply them in a univocal way to sort of across different domains and go, well, if we use this word in this way in this context, then if we kind of bring it into a discourse that sounds slightly more scientific, we should be able to do the same sort of thing as what physicists are doing and theorize about the term in this way. And so I'd be almost sympathetic a little bit to a more sophisticated version of maybe what JimBob's even saying here, right? Which is like that there is a kind of mistake that goes on if you try to think about these terms in that grammar, like they're different kind of spheres of human discourse. But yeah, his argument just seems to rely on that weirdness entirely, and just people going, well, yeah, that would be weird, that's wrong, and then people on his side laughing at the fact, as if laughing at this hypothetical idea that that's what the people who disagree with them think, but then that's obviously never what anyone said. Like, you know, Planet never came up and said, yeah, I think trees are true or something. Like,
I don't think he said that. I don't think he committed to this austere materialism either. Like, I don't know what his views are on abstracta, but like, for all I know, he's a realist, right? And everything he said, it seemed to me, was compatible with him holding that view. I mean, I don't know if he's got a philosophical background or how sophisticated.
No, I think it's in biology or something, is my understanding.
Yeah.
And I agree with your point, but I think there's a way of interpreting what he was saying, which is more sort of like normative, maybe, in terms of we should only commit ourselves to the types of things that the sciences tell us, or something like that. I mean, I have not listened to the whole thing, so I can't really piece together what he said. And I mean, I think something like that is defensible, at least maybe when it comes to the scope of like realist claims or something like that. But he didn't say that, so that would be kind of stretching what he said a bit.
Yeah, I think it's difficult when it becomes like, because unless you're nuancing it to some extent, so what I was trying to say towards the end about like it's really the crosshairs are over causal explanations about causal stuff. It's not big ontological pictures, right? So I don't think that like people who advocate physicalism are doing that because, like the ancient Greeks, they're just trying to boil everything down to the one type of stuff, like everything is fire. I don't know, everything is material. It's not like that type of crude ontology. They're interested in like explaining stuff and, you know, doing science or whatever. That's where they're coming from.
I think it depends. I think what I would say is there are areas of this where I would agree, and that's where I would think that these metaphysical projects become indistinguishable from science, basically. So these would be projects where people, say, work at the boundaries between different disciplines, like maybe chemistry and biology or chemistry and physics, and they talk about the ways that different people in those disciplines have been talking about some concepts that can be sort of re-engineered to fit together, and then that does actually inform the first order practice, because if that becomes accepted by the practitioners, they sort of revise their conceptualization of the science in line with this marrying up. I think maybe in some of these bigger projects, though, you know, like physicalism as conceived, I don't know, like Jonathan Schaeffer's grounding stuff or whatever, that there is a kind of grand division, and it's not clear to me exactly what that is. I mean, there are parts of it which are going to sound more plausible than saying, yeah, sure, everything just reduces to fire or quintessence or whatever. But I never really get my head around what, you know, it's like, I think that it's often as empty as the sort of like theism claims, right? You know, where as you pointed out, JimBob makes all these claims, but he doesn't actually say how kind of offering God helps in any way. Like, okay, you know, if naturalism is true, then you've merely got natural knowledge, but if, you know, God exists, then we've got God knowledge. Like, how does that help? Like, what?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But I do think that what's going on in metaphysics generally, like I even when there's more kind of sophisticated and less morally reprehensible people presenting these views, I don't see them getting to a place where they offer this kind of like final unifying theory in a way that does something. And I've kind of been moved by this thinking about, is it Hempel's dilemma, like where you're either offering a picture of the sciences that is a revision to current physics, in which case, what is that? Specify it, stipulate it. And I've not seen anyone do that in a way that convinces me to override or overturn my views within physics. Or you're kind of leaving this promissory note to a future physics, but it's actually empty and you're not saying anything about it other than maybe kind of gesture. Well, it'll all be grounded or, emergent, or like maybe you make some commitment on the nature of the levels relationship, but you don't really kind of give the theory.
Yeah, right. And I mean, it's making me think then how the complaint, if you remember, he was making a complaint about there's no purpose for him being here on naturalism, as if it's supposed to be really obvious that there's purpose on theism, and there's no problems about like what that could be. And it's kind of like a promissory note there that we would fill in that gap. Don't worry about that, but we'll fill it in. But like, I sort of do find that notion of cosmic purpose really quite problematic. Like, I don't understand how there could possibly be anything that could like play the role of the thing that like you go, oh, that's what it's all for. So this
Yeah,
could
yeah.
happen. You're like, what could that possibly be? How could it unify every single thing? It like fits into place just so this thing could take place. Anything it would be disappointing. It's like when you watch a horror film and it's like it's super scary when it's just a little creaky noise and then the
Yeah.
thing runs in the background or whatever. That's when the film's at its scariest. When it's at its least scary is when you see, oh, it's just another, rip-off sandworm thing from June that looks a bit rubbish. It's now not scary anymore. Like it's always a disappointment when you get to the telos. It's sort of self-defeating to actually have an ending there. It's all about the journey of getting there or something. That's such a cliched thing to say, but you know what I mean? Like I think it's deeply problematic, and it's not so easy to just say, "Oh, there's no real purpose on your view." It's just like, well, you promissory note of purpose on your view, but how could you ever actually deliver on that, right?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly weird, this idea of focusing on like the end point of your life or something, as
Mm.
if like everything comes down to like this one moment, rather than all of the durations of experience having an equal amount of weight. So suppose you're 10 minutes into being in heaven or something, right? Like, does that 10 minutes outweigh, I don't know, 70, 80 years of human life? Or does all the time in that human 70 years add up to matter equally? And so if all of that had been directed towards some goals, it would be better than 10 minutes directed towards some goals clearly in heaven or something. Like, I think there is some really weird sort of notions bound up. And I think I think it's best explained psychologically, which because I think that the purpose thing must be a psychological, like either you report that you feel purpose, which is a description of your psychology, or you report that you don't, but it's not a kind of like theory about things. But then I think in your feeling of having purpose, there might be a narrative that sort of centers the universe around your moral quest or whatever. And I think that makes
Hmm.
sense. And for people like JimBob, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that it's that kind of almost grandiose narcissism that then plays a role in some of the more harmful theological projects, right? Whereas maybe better theologies, in my view, will offer people stories that don't put them at the center of the universe, but kind of decenter them, make them think about communities and other people, things like
Yeah,
that. But yeah,
totally, totally. I've been reading this book by Timothy Mulgan, who's a philosopher at St Andrews, um, and it's actually an excellent book. And so, seeing as I'm going to say that on the stream, I should probably find it so I can say what it's called. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. I'll grab it. I'll chuck in the description or something. But yeah, if you look it up, it's some 2015, I think, or 2014.
purpose in the universe, the moral and something, the
Yeah,
moral and
that sounds like
metaphysical
it.
case for an anthropocentric.
An
The title's so
anthropocentric
long, but it's good.
purposivism.
There you go.
Yeah, so it's a wonderful, really thought-provoking book, right? But what he's doing is sort of finding this middle ground view, which I'm not sure exactly how like committed he is to it as a personal belief or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's professional philosophy kind of work. It's just about like following this little thread and this is a really interesting like reflection in this argument now, and if we do this over here, and the idea is supposed to be that it's like it's it's a bit like that there you could say that maybe that one way of thinking about it is that an anthropocentric purposivism could be filled out by there is a God and he does have purpose in the universe, but it's like not for human beings, it's for some other type of beings, right? And it might be that we are hardly even noticed, like backwater on the edge of everything, right? As if like you know, you find a world that just has slugs on it and nothing else, and you're going to think, well, that's not what everything's about. It's all about like our political and moral travails. That must be what the meaning of life is like. But if there can be beings that differ in their value as much as that, there could be other beings that are as, you know, so much better than us as we are to slugs or whatever. And then you just think like, you know, you have to kind of be humble enough or something, like not so self-centered to think that it has to all be around you. And then the hypothesis of a God who's interested in something other than human interests, it fares really well on loads of these sort of traditional arguments. So it does better than atheism, it does better than theism, according to him. It's like it's just a really interesting kind of take on stuff. But it's been making me reflect back on this type of stuff, because I do think that some of the things I'm like particularly antagonistic towards in you know, religious stuff isn't so much just the basic idea of theism. I mean, I don't think that the arguments for that are plausible and stuff. But the thing that really gets my goat is the nakedly self-centered approaches to theology. You know, where like God talks to you in particular, talks to you, and he has your interest. He loves you in particular. And so that type of stuff. Or he's on your side in a battle, right? Or he's your particular views about what you find disgusting that two men might do behind closed doors. God thinks the same as you about that. He also hates that. You know, and it's like, I'm going to dismiss out of hand your theology if it's centered, if it's exactly married up to what your prejudices and your social views or your political views. Like, obviously that's not right. You know, theism might be true, but that type of theism, like, fuck off. That's obviously not true. Right?
What I find interesting, I agree, and I think that there's my view would be, I've kind of come around to this view that it doesn't really matter how people are justifying justifying their values or whatever at the level of paradigms, as Jay Dyer would say. You know, it's more about what those actually are and how they help us form communities and get along with one another and achieve the things that we care about. And so I guess I've been personally trying to create a more expansive space within which theistic versions of that align with my values and goals can kind of flourish, right? Because I think even in what you're saying, right, there's room, I think, for a lot of Christians, say, to read the biblical stories and be like, yeah, like that, you know, the way that revelation has happened, I can like reflect on these religious texts and be like, that was really messed up that people thought of their relationship to God in this self-centered way. And what I get out of reading these scriptures in a moral light is this reflection that in modernity we won't think of God that way and be as self-centered and, you know, genocide Canaanites, because that's one way of engaging with scripture and religion and thinking about it. And I, you know, if someone is doing that, I kind of think that there's a poetic and aesthetic way of them engaging with their values there that aligns with my own that I find quite beautiful. And so I'm not going to be like, well, what's your like theory on a level playing field with physics about how this all works or something, because I don't think they're trying to do that. And I think that is more like what religion is doing for people than this kind of like metaphysical whatever the hell JimBob claims he's doing with this stuff.
So you've talked to JimBob before. I think did you debate him or something in the past as well?
I had a debate with him on Andrew Wilson's Crucible channel years ago, and I've had about 3 times I've called into his channel, but he's made some of them private now. I don't know why. I'm not saying like because I owned him or whatever. I just don't know why he's done that. But
You're not saying causation. You're just saying correlation.
yeah, I honestly don't know why. It might have been because his channel blew up and he didn't want to like be I don't know why he did it. Yeah.
But so I was saying that I thought that a lot of what was going on and his attitude was a sort of dominance behavior and just trying to sort of sit on Peterson instead of like engaging with him. What do you think about that? Is that unfair?
I completely agree, and this is why I did something incredibly weird when I debated him actually, because it was all it's kind of like cringe, but I think it was pretty funny. Was like I was talking to him about my like naturalistic views or whatever, and I didn't like stop or pay any attention to what I was doing. And I literally just took my shirt off and started flexing while I was doing it. and didn't. And I don't know. I think it was because I was like reading the chat on the Crucible channel at the time, right? And they were all like, "This soy, this soy guy with a lisp, like so gay, whatever." And I was like, "I know that I'm more jacked than JimBob," and I was like, "This will like screw up their concepts
Right.
of like what's going on." And it was I found it funny, but it's also like kind of weird and cringe. But yeah, so the point is, I agree that for those people, it's all just about displays of dominance and like this weird idea of masculinity and returning to the old ways and speaking in Latin or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and that type of stuff just is. It's not philosophy of religion. It's not philosophy at all. All that philosophy stuff's a bit like it's like a facade or something. It's just a vehicle in order to strut about and be manly in front of other men or something. I mean,
The thing is, though, I would say that, like, when someone dons a tweed jacket and stands next to an oak fireplace with hardback books or whatever, it's a similar sort of thing, but we've culturally made that the sort of trappings of like legitimate philosophy or whatever. Um, I think that what they're doing is trying to offer an alternative form of legitimation that fits in more with this like modern broy masculine podcasting. I also think there's probably geopolitical and economic causes here. Like, I mean, just the mere fact that they're all related to Russian orthodoxy and their political agenda undermines US democracy and institutions so much. I think, I think that Jim Bob's on the payroll of the Kremlin or whatever? No, but I suspect that there's some kind of influences going on behind these movements that are to do with, disinformation campaigns, or maybe certain figures are being paid and, then they're spreading and their views are being taken on board. But there's, the Tenet Media thing, it was proven that there are Russian companies doing this. There are shell companies of Russia that are doing this through YouTube in the US. And I
right.
suspect that the religious propaganda would be another element of that as well.
Yeah, yeah. Even if it's not explicit, like you say, it's not like Putin has said, "Hey, Jim Bob, say this in the debate with Peterson." But yeah, but I think that's right. And yeah, I mean, like, okay, I'm psychologizing someone from afar, and like, who am I to do that? I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or anything. And in a way, it is unfair because, or whatever, it's YouTube, isn't it? It doesn't really matter. But I mean, I just wanted to say, like, I'm sort of. It's not like I don't think that the similar analyses could be made of really anybody. There, whenever anybody does anything, there's all these like different levels of analysis and ways of understanding what's going on there. And it's not like just there's this guy over here who's a crypto dominance kind of fascist or something, and then there's me and I'm just normal and I don't have any. There's nothing psychologically going on that's explaining what I'm doing for ulterior reasons or whatever. Like, I mean, quite sympathetic to. I'm quite sympathetic to. Ernst Becker?
Yeah,
He's,
yeah.
yeah, so it's stuff about like existential psychoanalysis, where like loads of stuff that's going on. It's like it's not supplement. It's not it's not supplemented. What's the Freudian term where you
Oh,
redirect psychic
sublimated or
sublimated? Yeah, it's not
yeah.
sublimated sexual energies necessarily. That's the most explanatory idea. It's just it's sublimated existential dread that's like at heart. So I think you very briefly pointed out earlier. There's this sort of myth of the meaning that can be gained at the very last moment of somebody's life or something, right?
Right.
Because the alternative to that seems like terrifying. That there is no resolution, right? It's like it's just there's this film that's got It's the guy who played Happy Gilmore, you know, that
Oh
actor
yeah,
in
yeah.
everything in the 90s.
I know who you mean. I'm gonna have to. I'm just gonna Google it. Why waste time?
Larry something Sanders? No, what's just his.
Why is the actor not coming up? Is the thing. Adam Sandler? No, is it? It's not Adam Sandler, is it?
It
Adam
is,
Sandler. It
sure.
is Adam Sandler. Yeah.
Let's say it is.
Yeah.
There's a film I watched with him in it, like a recent film, like 2021 or something, where he plays a diamond dealer in New York. Can't remember what it's called, but it was actually really fascinating. It was like an interesting film in its own right. It sort of represented the hustle and bustle and the loud kind of cacophony of like in New York or whatever. But from an existential point of view, it was like a Beckett structure in the sense that like it was conveying existential like insights through the way that the plot was set out in the most immediate way. It was just that like it like the film starts and it's like halfway through people bickering, like he's shouting at his wife in the middle of like a thing. There's like five people talking at the same time. It just like starts like this, right? There's no like on ramp where the hobbits are like in, you know, in the Shire, and then it builds up to a whatever. It would just start at volume level 10, and it just goes on and on and on, and then I guess I won't like spoil it, but like the end of the film ends in the same way. There's no like resolution or like bringing together all the themes, and like the One Ring gets like thrown into Mount Doom like you knew it was always going to do. It reflected like real life, like it just, you know, you find yourself like in the world before you've had like after you've done the on ramp. It's like you wake up sort of age 10 or something, whatever it is, when you have your first sort of like meaningful like aware existential moment, and it's like too late for you've already got a history, and you know there's nothing you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
do, and all the phases you've moved through already, and presumably it's like that confusing sort of anxiety inducing state that is like right up until it stops, and then that's it, it's over. And like that sort of reality is really hard to just live by. So because you can't like incorporate that, it's like kind of hold a beach ball underwater or something, because it won't stay there for very long. What happens is you've developed these strategies to try and like live in a world in your head where it doesn't have these kind of brutal rough edges around it, and that's where you can persuade yourself that there is some like telos or meaning, and it's all going to be
Yeah.
revealed. Yeah, I keep reading, maybe find the enlightenment at the end of the tunnel or something. I don't know. So I think that applies to me just as much as anybody else. I'm just saying in here I can see
Yeah,
traces of like
you can
with
apply
Dawes
that
maybe.
framework. Yeah, you can apply that framework to say you and to him. And if you look at both of your experiences of how that's working out, it's like, well, here's how you're living, right? And you can make sense of that with your actions and things. And then you look at, say, his actions, and you'd say, well, clearly he's not at least dealing with that in a healthy way or something. You say he's, he's reacting to these experiences and emotions that he's trying to make sense of, but in a way where and this is where I think then there are other types of like sociological explanation and things come into it where, say, for example, he might be finding validation in his online presence, or and then you can start talking about the economics of how YouTube works and what that incentivizes, and
Mm.
why it is that an audience is being drawn to him, which can be because of broader bad economic circumstances, but those circumstances predating on people's attention, so then feeding, them to people like JimBob, where they can all find a similar community in dealing with their emotions in this way, where they own people and harm people
Hmm.
and dominate and things like that. And yeah, so I think that it's broadly right. I mean, I don't think you have to necessarily subscribe to. It's not because I'm necessarily against it, but I don't think you have to buy into everything in that for that to be like a heuristic that you can kind of apply and clearly see that people in these spaces are not psychologically well. I mean, I personally, in my own personal thinking, not that people have to sign up to what I'm saying, but I see these kind of expressions of American theology as like symptoms of a kind of sick society in many ways, like as these kind of effects of various economic and social harms that are kind of bubbling up in various ways through the technologies that are produced by American culture, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, I've been going for 2 hours, so I think I should probably um,
Yeah, yeah.
Uncut Gems, I think maybe the name of that. Cam's in the chat. Hi, Cam. If I'd seen you there earlier, Cam, I would have said you should join us as well. Okay, I don't see any super chats, but I wonder if maybe I've switched them off or something. I imagine I probably have done something like that. I probably said no super chats somewhere.
No, I
No
think people
money for
can.
anything.
Let me.
I have no idea.
Oh no, actually, I don't think you can. You know, I actually think you might have turned it off.
I probably did. So, well, that's fine. I should be punished for my inadequate use of technology by the technology itself, which should punish me for being shit at it.
Yeah, you could be making more money for YouTube than you have.
Do you know what? I've switched on. I switched on whatever it is where you can have adverts and whatnot on the channel after like 10 years. I realized that you could do that. And it's told me that I've got above the threshold that it will do a payout for. And I was sitting there, was going, expect a payment in the next 3 to 5 days. I was like, sweet, I'm going to get like 50 quid. This is going to be amazing. And it just went over to the next month, and it said expect a payment.
I
by
think
the end of that month.
there's like a
Okay.
threat. I think there's a threshold of something like £60. So you have if it's below that threshold, then it doesn't pay
Yeah,
out
yeah.
until it hits it
I
or
was
something.
above the threshold, and it's
Oh,
rolled it
okay.
over, and it's just still counting up. It's just never paid
Or
me any money. So I just,
have you filled out? You've got to fill out like a tax form as well. I forget what it's
Christ,
called. Yeah, but
it
through
sounds
Google
quite a lot
AdSense.
like work at that point. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. It's not too
Ugh.
hard. They make it as easy as possible. You've just got to go to the right page and tick all the boxes.
I imagine JimBob's done it, so I should
Yeah,
probably be able to do it.
exactly. But he's in the US, so he doesn't have to. Well, I mean, he does have to file his taxes, but he won't have to fill out this form. Yeah.
All right, well, I'll try and figure that out. And then I think Gaithan and Gaelics. Great. That's funny. Oh, well, there we go. Digital gay gnosis.
My
Is that
actual
Jeff?
favorite one is someone said digital know nothing. That's that's the one that made me laugh the
Nice.
most. I was
Yeah.
like, yeah.
I liked it once Rationality Rules pronounced my surname Malpass. Like he just put an R in there. Like just so that it sounded more like arse. It needed to. I just said to him, there's no R in my name. There's not a single R anywhere. I don't... Anyway.
It's just southern pronunciation. He's like mall pass, basically.
Yeah. All right, cool. I'm gonna try and end the live stream. What I'll probably start doing is sharing my screen by accident then. But yeah,
Big Ol
cool.
says, "Are you going to delete the comments on this video too, Nathan?" I can't delete comments on Alex's videos, unfortunately. Sorry, Big Ol. But I would if I
Well,
could.
yeah. I'll delete them if no, I won't. I'll leave them all on, especially the ones that are constantly saying. I even got just the other day someone asking me, "When's the J Die round two gonna happen?" Fuck off! Why is everyone obsessed with that? It's just ridiculous.
I think it is though. It's a product of the platform, right? Like for example, I think with Thoughtology, you've got like really good philosophy interviews that you've done there, right? But the platform incentivizes fucking like JimBob versus Planet Pete. And like Planet Peterson does some good stuff, but even his content is like geared toward sort of, like stupid people saying stupid things and showing themselves up because that is what's easy to watch, easy to consume, and that's where our culture's at. People are stressed out from their jobs and creating their shareholder value. They want to distract themselves from those feelings with, passive content or seeing someone get out. It's all a toxic mess of systems that don't work for humans, but yeah.
Well, on that note, on Thursday, I'll be doing another live stream where I'll be interviewing Graham Oppy about
Oh,
an
nice.
academic paper that he's written on the Grim
Which,
Reaper paradox.
okay, yeah, nice.
Jeepers Reapers is the name of the paradox, but that will do terribly with the algorithm because it'll just be really
Yeah,
like I'll really
Halloween.
enjoy it, and I'm sure the philosophy nerds will enjoy it. But there'll be no ponage going on, and there'll be no
Just change
debates.
the title to like Graham Oppy destroys like Cameron Battusi, even though Cameron's not even there.
Yeah, I'll get lasers coming out of his eyes, and Cameron will be going, "Oh no!" That'd be great.
Yeah, sounds good. Right, see you in a bit, Alex.
All right, on that bombshell. Cheers, guys.